Hi, thank you for joining me. My name is Tammye Smith, and I'd like to provide a brief presentation on Carl Rogers, one of the founding fathers of the humanistic psychology movement. My article, Carl Rogers, was taken from electronic textbook Personality Theories. The author is Rogers.wmv, and this article was copyrighted in 2006. Would you believe that human beings are basically good? How does this align with your Christian world perspective? Carl Rogers is known as one of the most influential and prolific psychologists of the 20th century. His work not only is instrumental in psychology, but has been applied to education, group settings, literature, and actually world affairs. In 1987, he was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. He is also the recipient of 2 APA awards. In 1931, he received his PhD in psychology from Columbia University, and in 1942, he published Counseling and Psychotherapy. However, his most influential work, Client-Centered Therapy, was published in 1951. Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow are the founders of humanistic psychology. This was a positive movement in psychology towards understanding the best of human society, the best of human beings. The basic tenet of humanistic psychology is self-actualization. It's a natural drive to fulfill our God-given abilities. Rogers not only believed that we could become self-actualized, but that we were naturally endowed with the tendency for self-actualization, and that we were basically good and instinctively made choices that promote goodness and health. The route to self-actualization for Rogers is considered positive regard and positive self-regard. Creating self-awareness through positive self-regard is related to the nurturance, the acceptance, and the love that we receive from others. Positive self-regard is the feeling of self-worth and self-esteem that we've received based on positive regard from other people. Rogers believed that there was an ideal self and a real self. The real self is the self that we are striving for, who we want to be, and the ideal self was a self that was not based in reality, but based upon conditional positive regard. Conditional positive regard is negative and is damaging to one's self-image. In an effort to cope with the distinct differences between the distinct differences between real self and ideal self, unfortunately, people experience psychologically threatening situations that lead to anxiety, and this is solely a result of the incongruency between the real self and the ideal self. It's the area where our unresolved inner conflicts exist. To deal with the unresolved inner conflicts, we employ defense mechanisms. Unfortunately, the defense mechanisms allow us to continue to be in a vicious cycle. When we employ them, we continually go back to psychologically threatening situations, anxiety, more employment of the denial factors, the denial mechanisms. The route out of the denial mechanisms and to reach ideal self requires the help of a therapist. The therapist is to help one become fully functioning and lead the good life. It's important that the therapist exude acceptance, genuineness, and empathy. Acceptance refers to positive regard and a non-judgmental attitude toward the client. Genuineness means that the therapist is not only open but honest with the client, and empathy revolves around mirroring the client's feelings. The techniques used in Rogerian theory, the non-directive Rogerian theory of counseling, is active listening and reflection. Reflection is basically paraphrasing the client's thought and taking their emotional communication, be it verbally or physically, into account and providing them with insight into that by paraphrasing their behavior, paraphrasing their statements. Supposedly, when a client hears his thoughts and his emotions, he then has more insight into himself. He becomes more self-aware. As a result, this self-awareness decreases inner conflict and allows the ideal self and the real self to mesh, which provides the route for self-actualization. Carl Rogers' theories are the result of years of client therapy relationship. I will leave you with a quote based on his essay on becoming a person. For Rogers, experience, he said, was the highest authority. Neither the Bible nor prophets, neither Freud nor research, neither the revelations of God or man could take precedence over his own direct experience. Thank you for joining me. Peace and blessing.